नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parikacharya Astotarasya Shishmati Divine Grace AC Bhakti Vedanta Srila Prabhupada की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय, नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तों की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर धाम की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, मथुरा धाम की जय, मायापुर नवदीप धाम की जय, जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल। All glories to assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Gaura. Gaur Premanande, Hare Hare.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu. Hare Krishna. And thank you everyone for being here. It is Wednesday, August 10th, and you are joining us for a Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayādvaita Swami. And we are reading in the 3rd canto, in the 6th chapter, the description of the universal form. Getting close to the end of that chapter, Maitreya is speaking to Vidura. And we're very eager to hear everyone's questions and comments tonight. And I'll be sharing links so that you can share these classes with your friends. And we're so happy that you could be with us, Maharaj. If you're not ready, we can start reading or something. Maharaj is still muted, so.
It'll take me a moment more to plug in, and then we should be good.
Maharaj is in Dubai?
Yes. Okay. And switch the view. We're good. Thank you. I apologize for not having better video here. In the other room, I'd get better video, but we'll leave that for the next night if I can get it together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Atmano Vasito Vatsa Mahima Kavinadina Samvatsara Sahasrante Tiya Yoga Vipakaya. O my son, the original poet, Brahma, after mature meditation for 1,000 years, 1,000 celestial years, could know only that the glories of the Supreme Soul are inconceivable. Purport: there are some froggish philosophers who want to know the Supreme Soul by means of philosophy and mental speculation. And when the devotees, who are to some extent in knowledge of the Supreme Lord, admit that the glories of the Lord are inestimable or inconceivable, the froggish philosophers adversely criticize them. These philosophers, like the frog in the well, who tried to estimate the measurement of the Pacific Ocean, like to take trouble over fruitless mental speculation, instead of taking instructions from devotees like the original poet, namely Brahma. Lord Brahma underwent a severe type of meditation for 1,000 celestial years. Yet he said that the glories of the Lord are inconceivable. Therefore, what can the froggish philosophers hope to gain from their mental speculation? It is said in the Brahma Samhita that the mental speculator may fly through the sky of speculation with the velocity of the mind or the wind for thousands of millions of years, and still he will find it inconceivable. The devotees, however, do not waste time in such vain searching after knowledge of the Supreme, but they submissively hear the glories of the Lord from bona fide devotees. Thus, they transcendentally enjoy the process of hearing and chanting. The Lord approves of the devotional activities of the devotees or Mahatmas, and he says, Mahatmanas tu mam parta daivim prakritam ashrataha vajrantyananya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam satatam kirtayanto mam yatantas chadrita vrataha namasyantas chamam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. The pure devotees of the Lord take shelter of the para-prakriti, the internal potency of the Lord, called Lakshmi Devi, Sita Devi, Srimati Radharani, or Srimati Rukmini Devi. And thus they become actual Mahatmas, or great souls. Mahatmas are not fond of indulging in mental speculations, but they actually take to the devotional service of the Lord without the slightest deviation. Om Jnana Timirantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam jena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamahyam Tadhati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sadivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Pradijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lavita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Puri Priye Vansha Kopatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vashadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Atmano Vatsito Vatsa Mahima Kavanadina Samvatsara Sahasrante Tiya Yoga Vipakaya. Here, Maitreya tells Vidura about the nature of the glories of the Lord. Those glories are limitless. Pantastukoti Satavatsada Samprakam. One may travel through the sky of speculation at mental speed or the speed of the wind and still not get to the tip of the toe of Govinda. So the the scholars, the mental speculators, will not understand, and the devotees will not fully understand. But the scholars will scoff at the glories of the Lord, and the devotees will relish the glories of the Lord. They'll know that the project is unlimited, that one cannot fully understand Krishna. But tushanti cha ramanti cha. Odiyanta parasparam katiyantas chamam nityam. Tushanti cha ramanti cha. They'll go on hearing and speaking about the Lord, and they'll relish whatever they can understand of the Lord's glories. Not that we have to understand everything. We have to. If we don't understand everything, then what's the use? Even Brahma couldn't understand everything. After 1,000 celestial years, he couldn't understand everything. What could he understand? He could understand that the glories of the Lord can't be understood. That there's no limit. The Lord's glories, the limit of the Lord's glories cannot be reached, cannot be understood. That much he could understand. So, we, Brahma, can't fully understand the glories of the Lord. What will we understand? But we'll try to understand something as given to us by our spiritual masters. We'll try to appreciate something of the science of Krishna, and will try to be engaged in the service of Krishna. That much we can understand. By hearing the glories of the Lord, we'll understand that Krishna is the supreme master, that we're his servants, and that we should engage every moment of our life in Krishna's service. Taivi Prakritim Ashrita. Taivi Prakriti means the spiritual energy. Ashrita means taking shelter. So the devotees take shelter of the internal energy of the Lord, Lakshmi or Rukmini Devi or Srimati Radharani. And under that, the guidance of the spiritual energy, or by the grace of the spiritual energy, they wish to be engaged always in the service of the Lord, Ananya Manasa, without deviation of mind. Panchankya Ananya Manasa, Gyatva Bhutarim Avyayam, knowing that the glories of the Lord are avyaya, inexhaustible. All right, there's a question from Atina.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranams. Sorry, my question might be a little jumbled, but this just your discussion now made me remember a conversation that I recently had. Although I'm not qualified, I was given a little bit of responsibility to try to bring someone into Krishna consciousness, and this person does follow a different path, an impersonal path, kind of within the Buddhist faith. And in our discussion, I have some ability, from hearing so much and just to spew out some knowledge. And there, of course, I don't think their pramana is very, from our perspective, I would say very deep. It's just from this one person. I'm not sure what the qualification is, but his argument was, it's not about having the knowledge. It's not about knowing, it's about understanding. And in one sense, I do understand, you say there's Gyan and then there's Vigyan, there's realized knowledge. And, but when you say, even here, Lord Brahma can't even fully understand. And even what we're doing, I will speak from my perspective. I, never seen the Brahma Jyoti or Paramatma or Bhagavan. So we're just given this knowledge, but we haven't realized it or fully quote unquote understood it. So it's almost like, and even all these leelas, all these stories, which we understand help grow our bhakti and our love for Krishna. But, I don't see too many people. It's like, what's the point of all this knowledge? And I can, in one sense, agree too, because the gopis, they don't have, they understood the end of all knowledge. The end of all knowledge was surrender to Krishna, love Krishna with all your body, heart, mind, and soul. They understood the end of all knowledge without having read a single thing, like a shastra. So their path, in one sense, they, go into deep meditation, and somehow there's revelations or deeper understanding, versus just studying Shastra, because to us, that's how we gain knowledge. But their argument is, it's not about gaining knowledge. It's about actually fully understanding and realizing. So I don't have any thoughts around that. And sorry, one last thing. It's, it's interesting, guys.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start there. He makes a distinction between knowing and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Accepting that there's a distinction between knowing and understanding, what is it that you know or understand? What is it that you know or understand? We'll accept that there's a difference between knowing and understanding. Let's take it that knowing is basically more superficial, that let's say it's book knowledge, and then there's realization. We could call that understanding, or he can define it however he wants. But in any case, he understands something. All right, what is it you understand? What is it that you understand? It must be something. Your teacher has taught you something. Lord Buddha taught something. So what is it that they teach, or what is it that you've understood? That's the subject matter. Whether you call it knowledge or understanding, or whether you want to approach it as knowledge or understanding, what is it that you've understood?
Right. If I could say a different way, and this is what I had mentioned, is that it starts with knowledge. Then there can be understanding of the knowledge or realization of the knowledge.
Whatever, whether it's knowledge starts with this or it starts with that, what is it that you understand?
Mm.
If you really understand it, you should be able to help me understand, no?
Mm. Yeah, I
So
didn't
what
ask.
is it?
Right. Mm. Yeah, I mean, he gave an example. I mean, again, in the Buddhist, I mean, of course, I'm of Asian background, so there's all these. Well, whether you call it folklore, but many would say, and I don't know if this is true, but like there is like the Monkey King, which some would say that's really Hanuman, and so there's all these stories of like the Monkey King, and this is like, and if you don't take to that, then it's like Chinese folklore, or as it actually happened. But there's a story where he went to a teacher and the teacher just tapped him 3 times on the head. And people looking at him said, what was that? What? And this Monkey King knew exactly what it was. It meant, meet me at this cave at 3:00 or something like that. And it's not about, it's like when you come to a higher spiritual level, there's a deeper understanding without, like, I guess it's like Shastra in one sense.
But then there's nothing we can say to you. If your understanding is understanding that can in no way be expressed, then no use talking at all with you. And please don't try to talk to others about, if you won't talk to me, don't talk to anyone else. What is it that we're supposed to, it's like, suppose quantum mechanics, we say, your Newtonian physics is really it's either wrong or insufficient by the deeper understanding that I've gained. And we call it quantum mechanics. Well, what is quantum mechanics? Well, it can't really be explained. It has to be grasped by realization. Well, yeah, but what is it? Well, you just have to be there. Yeah, that's useless. We understand that, I understand quantum mechanics is beyond my full ability to grasp. That even the greatest, even Niels Bohr and Einstein and those kind of people haven't gotten to the end of quantum mechanics. I get that. But it's not that that they couldn't talk about it, that Bohr couldn't talk to Einstein, or vice versa, because each of them was deep in some kind of metaphysical understanding that was beyond words, beyond expression. It's beyond fully understanding, or beyond our ability to fully understand. But that doesn't mean that, no, there's nothing we can say. Tell me something about your understanding. Otherwise, I have to write you off, basically. The whole world can go around and say, well, it's just too deep, and there's nothing I can say about it. Then forget it. And anyone who knows nothing can go around and say, well, it's just too deep. That becomes the emperor's new clothes. My clothes are so, these threads, Your Majesty, are so subtle that hardly anyone can understand what they are. That's, forget that. Tell us something about them. Otherwise, it's a bluff.
Mm.
Or it's either a bluff or it's just useless. You have this deep understanding that you can't express, that nobody else can talk about. We wish you a happy life. There's nothing we can say to you. And I hope that you're not going to go to the next person and start preaching, what it is.
Thank you. I think it's thank you. That was helpful. I wanted to get your thoughts though, and apologies, this is a little jumbled, but this is spiritual transcendental knowledge, and the material mind cannot understand a spiritual subject. So it must be bestowed in a sense from Krishna himself, like through mercy, right? That one can understand spiritual topics because, again, the mind is material. Actually, yes, do you have any thoughts around that?
That the mind is material and therefore incapable of understanding spiritual topics.
Well, it's even, I think of what you just read now, Lord Brahma. Even Lord Brahma doesn't fully understand Krishna, and one can't fully understand Krishna. Even Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, after of the many thousands who endeavor for perfection, very few actually come to know me. I'm not quoting the exact words properly, but one really never can understand Krishna. I mean, and so, but even material and spiritual cannot mix. And of course, the soul is, I guess, covered by Maya in this material body, but hypothetically, it's still not mixing. So, but still, matter, like material, cannot understand spiritual. So I'm curious, your thoughts around that. Like, it must be a spiritual, like, mercy from Krishna to or God in whatever form, just to have interest, in spirituality. We would say pious credits, of course, Sukriti, but for people to actually understand spiritual topics, I mean, it can't be understood through the material. I don't know if you have any thoughts around that.
That's also by mercy.
Hmm?
That's also by mercy. First, by mercy, one becomes interested, and by mercy, one understands however much one understands. Brahma doesn't say, I couldn't understand anything. But he admits that it's a fragment of Krishna's glories.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fragment of Krishna's glory. Krishna's glories are unlimited. So I've been able to understand. Someplace we were reading, I don't know if it's from my reading ahead or from other reading I was doing, there's a verse where in Bhagavatam that I'm explaining as far as I've understood. Yata, as far as I've heard and as far as I've been able to understand. In other words, not that we say, Hare Krishna, that I know everything and I'll explain everything to you. And at the end, you'll know everything. But I've understood something. And as far as my understanding allows, I'll speak to you. Elsewhere in the Bhagavatam, it said, the way birds fly in the sky according to their ability. There are those that fly way high and those that are sort of skimming over the surface, not so far up. So, but they're all in the sky. Some higher, some lower. So according to their ability, according to what they've been given, they fly. And some fly higher, the 6 Goswamis, what did they understand? Radha Krishnam Maharnisham Prabhajito Vivartito Yo. They were just absorbed in the glories of Radha and Krishna. They were in ecstasy, even bewildered by these things. So what can we understand? We'll read books of Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, but we'll not understand the depths to which their understanding has reached. But we'll relish something. We'll read Nectar of Devotion we'll read Srimad Bhagavatam, and we'll appreciate, we'll relish. Will we see what Sanatana Goswami saw? Will we relish in every syllable of the Bhagavatam what he relished? Maybe not. No, not maybe, we won't. But we'll appreciate something.
So what I hear is the material mind can understand knowledge, even spiritual topics, but actually to fully understand it must come from the mercy of the Lord.
Yes, the material mind becomes spiritualized. Ultimately, everything is spirit, sarva kalavidam brahma. So our process is the process of spiritualizing everything by engaging it in the service of the Lord. The microphone is useless, it's just a material thing. But when engaged in Krishna service, it becomes spiritualized. And it's useful for speaking Krishna Katha. Our ears are just material, but when they're engaged in the service of Krishna, they can hear Krishna Katha. The mind is material, it's just subtle matter. But when properly engaged under the guidance of the spiritual energy, Daivi Prakriti, then it becomes also spiritualized. And by the mercy of Krishna and his energy, we can understand something.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you. From another Chinese tradition, we hear, one who knows does not speak, one who speaks does not know. And I remember being impressed by the profoundness of that as a teenager. And then being more impressed when one of my godbrothers said that one who speaks does not know. That means you don't know, and therefore you shouldn't speak. What's the use of your knowledge? One who speaks does not know, one who knows does not speak. Okay, we write you off then. We'll go to someone who can speak. Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Prabhupada said that, translated or paraphrased, now the speaking begins. When we speak about the absolute truth, now the speaking begins. And we accept the limits we accept our limits, but we'll carry forward. In the material sphere, very famously, what is it? We hear that we're like, that the great scientists are like just standing on the shore and appreciating just a little bit. So they also accept that they don't understand everything by their science, but they don't say, well, so we don't know anything. We know something, and the great scientists will be humble and say, we just understand a little bit. Even the less great scientists may at least have that much humility. So the devotees are in the science of Krishna don't claim to know everything, but we're appreciating something, and we can talk about it. We can talk about it, bodhiyanta parasparam, and we can relish it also. Tulsi Priya has a hand.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj, please accept my obeisances. I was very much appreciating what you were saying about relishing the glories of the Lord, and I believe that in itself provides realization. It reminds me of two things. One is Dhruva Maharaj, who, motivated by his desire and by his willingness to perform austerities, devotional service under the instruction of his spiritual master, he was just a little boy, didn't know anything, didn't understand anything, and his motivation was, material to begin with. And yet when the Lord touched him on the head with the conch shell, he was flooded with understanding. And then the other story that I'm remembering is there was someone who was questioning Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I don't remember the details of it, but I think Srila Bhaktisiddhanta told him, go do some seva in the kitchen. He wouldn't answer. He says, do some seva in the kitchen, and then I'll explain it to you. And then after that person had been performing seva for a while, he understood what he wanted to ask. Sorry, Srila Saraswati. So I feel like with the devotees, and it's funny that Athena brings this up, because I posted something on Facebook looking for an answer about something that Srila Bhakti Vinod said about studying Shankaracharya's Vedanta commentary. And he said, even somebody at the point of being a Mahabhagavata can fall down if he studies that commentary. And I said, where did he say this? And so it turned into a whole discussion about studying Advaita philosophy. And my realization as a result of that conversation is that the devotees just want prema, and it's not about understanding or knowing, because, as you were saying, it's impossible. It's impossible because it keeps expanding. The glories of the Lord keep expanding. So how will you ever reach the end of it anyways? You never, but it seems like this need to understand means you want to be satisfied somehow. You
Not just that, but bhaktya shruta grihitaya, devotional service is fortified understanding.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we go to the sahaja direction. It's all about prema. It's all about prema. And books are, just an impediment. And then they do all nonsense, and they pretend to be prema bhaktas when they're not.
Mhm.
So in our tradition, the Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, there are examples for Raghunath Das Goswami for relishing Krishna Katha,
Mhm.
but they don't say, well, we're not interested in knowledge.
Mhm.
Knowledge is, that's, no. Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya, our understanding or our devotion is nourished by the conclusions given in the Shastras. We're reading the first 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Mhm.
Why? We need to understand. Prabhupada began with, "You're not this body." Why? Why waste time on this, just philosophical stuff? Basically that's the Upanishads. You're not this body. The Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, are giving us this understanding. Why should we care? Why don't we just go to prema? But if we don't have this understanding, then our prema will be nonsense. We'll have prema for Krishnadasi and all of that. So instead of love of Krishna, it will be the love of the material world under a different concept. So,
It's more-
or different excuse. So we're not disdainful of knowledge. We have great scholars like Goswamis, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, also a great scholar, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. These are all Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya. It's not that we reject scholarship, we reject knowledge, we reject learning. But these all need to be seen within the context of devotional service, and they support devotional service. They support devotional service. So these things we need to see it that way, and at the same time recognize that just book knowledge isn't everything, and that finally it's about developing love of Krishna, developing our service attitude, and so on. There's another thought I had by what you were saying, that what we speak about Krishna will have potency when we follow the regulative principles, when we're situated factually in devotional service, according to the guidance of the spiritual master, chanting 16 rounds a day, following the four regular principles, then what we speak, however great or however small, will have potency. We saw that the early devotees in the 1960s were able to bring people to Krishna consciousness by the potency of their preaching. They may not have known very much. They may, even Nectar of Devotion might not yet have been on the scene, or if Nectar of Devotion was there, so much, even third canto might not have been published, or if third canto, not fourth canto, or even in the beginning, not Krishna book. But still, they were able to bring people to Krishna consciousness. Their words and their chanting had potency because they were following the orders of the spiritual master, chanting 16 rounds a day, situated in the process. Daivim prakritim ashrita, they were taking shelter of the Lord's spiritual potency, and therefore they had potency when they spoke. Dhruva Maharaj was empowered by the Lord to speak, and when he spoke, his words had potency. We're still reading them and trying to appreciate. So, and then there are scholars who are terrifyingly learned. They know more about the conclusions of Bhagavatam than we may ever know from an academic point of view. They may know more about Chaitanya Charitamrita, that they may know it inside and out. And yet they're not devotees of Lord Chaitanya. So they can't even bring themselves to pure devotional service. And what to speak of others. So that the process is integral. From that point of view, that's another answer to our Buddhist friend. All right, you can't tell me your understanding, tell us your process. Well, my process is meditation. All right, your process is meditation, our process is meditation, but your process will be very difficult. Silent meditation will be very difficult. And our process of hearing will be very easy. These are the two things. It's also, I love this in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Tell me your sadhana, and what is the sadhana and what is the sadhya? What is the means and what is the goal? And that's like your question for anyone who's following any kind of process, whether it's a material process, a spiritual process. What are you doing and what do you hope to achieve? And then we can consider those two things. What is it that you say is the goal? And is that goal worthy of achieving, or is there a higher goal than that? And what's your process? Are you going to get there? How far can you go by following that process? So here, exactly that test is being applied. How far can we go by mental speculation? Not so far. Not so far. Even Brahma, following that process for 1,000 celestial years, finally said, well, this isn't going to get me very far. And I don't know what process your friend is following, but if he's honest about it, I had a friend it's a distant relative who's took up a Buddhist path. And, he admitted that we're trying to empty the mind, but the mind keeps filling. And, he attributes that to ego and the difficulty of extinguishing the ego. Well, yes. What is that in Bhagavad Gita? Klesho dikhadarastesha avyakta sakta cetasa. Because your goal and your process are both difficult. Your goal is something impersonal or void, and your process is not really going to get you there. Yes, Satina.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So it's just very interesting. It's very sad. I mean, I don't ever want to, I guess, put down or invalidate someone's faith, but I mean, their pramana is just some dude who claims to be some enlightened person. And so, but really they also kind of cultivate like the compassion, which is the nonviolence, and certain similar pillars, which we would say is like similar to the four regulative principles. But of course, we know the four regulative principles is not bhakti. It's conducive to bhakti, but not bhakti. So I think theirs is a little more focused on dharma. That being said, their meditation, in talking to this person, he's had very profound experiences. So I'm not going to invalidate that, but supposedly the meditation works where he's gone in his past lives, understood relationships, and like, and then, he knows people, who can, when you reach higher goals, levels can like levitate. And I've said this sounds like the Dhyan yoga process, right? Mystic
Or we
city.
can deal with that. I can go, I can realize my past lives, I can levitate, I can turn water into gold. Okay. And is that your goal? That
Well,
you can remember 1,000 past lives, or that you can levitate? After you levitate, you're going to come back down again. All right.
Well, he says it's not the goal, it's a consequence. Just like, we do say the Ashtanga yoga, the Dhyan yoga process is a path, just
the what?
powers, excuse me. It is a bona fide, I would say bona fide path. It is a path of yoga. They realize maybe the impersonal Brahman, or they could also, at that fork decide to go the personal route. But point is, the mystical powers, even from the yogis, are just a consequence. It's not their goal per se. I mean, maybe certain yogis like will want those, but the goal is actually like, say, samadhi or liberation. And as just a consequence of their meditations, they gain these mystical powers. So in reading that, I would say it sounds a little similar to the Dhyan yoga path. But I guess
we're not impressed with powers. The scientists have powers too. They can fly in the sky. They can enter into the mountains, and they can live in the sea for however much time. So they can do extraordinary things. They can split atoms. But what's your goal?
Right. I mean, he does say their goal is to be with God. They can't really elucidate what that means, so there's not much information. But I guess what I'm also saying is,
with God, what will you?
Sorry.
With God, what will you do?
Right. I've asked. He doesn't know. They don't talk about that. But their ultimate goal, that their meditations to get out is to, and when they say empty, means being completely empty of material desires, and that's the like transit through to the spiritual world. So I can understand that us too. Okay. But
so he can speak something. It sounds like.
I'm sorry.
It sounds like he can speak something.
Yes, I would say after, as like a follow-up. Yeah.
Speak a little more. Speak again. These are the 2 points. Tell me what your goal is, your ultimate goal, and tell me what your process is.
Right.
If you can't tell me that much, if you can't tell me your goal, I don't know if I want to go. And if you can't tell me your process, I'm not going to go.
Right. No, he can probably lose.
Flight 53.
I'm sorry?
Tell me it's Chicago and tell me it's flight 53.
Right. They do lay it out. Their goal is to be with God, and their process is following these 3 pillars of, which I say is very similar to Dharma, our Dharma code, like our 4 regs, but they focus on compassion, austerity, and truthfulness. How they cultivate that, I'm not sure. And then through these like exercises and meditation. And it's just kind of this transit to get to the spiritual world, and being empty is like empty of material desires. I
We're also teaching the same things. Become empty of material desires, but your path is going to be difficult.
Right. Yes. Well, what I was getting at was, so they have a small book, and that's like one of their two like books, like Shastra wise. And I read it. It's a pretty quick read. But that teacher, in one sense, denounces mantra meditation. And his one argument is that the mind actually can't focus on the mantra. The mind is too busy, and so it's
what do we do about the mind?
I'm sorry.
If the mind can't focus on the mantra, what can it focus on?
Right. It's more his argument. It's just like, when I read, I remember like Haridas Thakur was able to chant, like, I mean, we cannot do that. And in one sense, I also agree. I mean, my mind is all over the place when I chant. So, and I'll be honest. So I can understand that. I'm much more of a visual person too. So I also, been trained in like visual meditation. And in one sense, that's easier for me to focus. But I don't know what they're actually focusing on. But the teacher was arguing that focusing the mind on the mantra and the sound is actually extremely difficult, and their meditation is much more effective. And I think they did give an example, but now I forget. But I brought that up because you had mentioned your meditation will be very difficult. Ours is very easy, and it's just interesting. They argue the opposite as well. I'm sorry.
What do they meditate on?
Yeah, I don't know, but it'll be, I'm sure, very difficult. Of course, because you can't meditate on nothing, just like meditate on the impersonal energies.
So you tell me what you're meditating on and how easy it is for you to fix your mind on that. It sounds like they're all over the place, and that it may be one of those cases of what can you say? We'll go on to the next person.
Right. I just feel like it's, anyone can argue anything in every path. Every religion is going to argue that theirs is the best, all of that. And so whatever argument you give, we say, just like, in CC, it's the only way. It's the only way. It's like chanting God's name is the only way. And then you go to another tradition, they're like, no, and they're going to say the complete opposite. So it was just interesting because, what can you say? We just say the complete opposite. There's almost no.
Sounds like the person who's stubbornly fixed on the idea of something impersonal, something void. They're going to have a hard time appreciating or understanding devotional service or anything about Krishna consciousness. So they're worse off than a person who doesn't know anything. Worse off than a person who doesn't know anything. So we wish them good luck, give them prasadam. If they read a page from one of our books, maybe they'll get something. If they hear the chanting, it will act. There's nothing they can do to stop it from having some potency. Or it has potency, but something will come through to them. But it will be slow if they're attached. Klesho dikataras tesham avyakta sakta cetasa. For those who are attached to some impersonal idea, progress is very troublesome.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you. Now, I realize I've neglected 3 comments. Well, one is yours, Atina, so I haven't neglected you. Prabin has posted Ita, Shrutam, Kirtim, and it seems we're going to we're coming to that, or we passed that? Anyway, it's right in this chapter, that verse of whatever I've been able to hear from the spiritual master and whatever I could assimilate, I'm now describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech. Otherwise, my power of speaking would remain unchaste. Yes. And Saraswati has, well, it's more than I can read in small type at the moment, and it would put me over time, so if you'll forgive me, Saraswati. Well, let's see. No, we read that devotees can enjoy hearing about Krishna's dealings with the devotees or demons, which indicates any pastimes of Krishna are equally enjoyable. I was watching a TV show about childhood pastimes of Krishna and the Leela and his Leela with demons. Coming to try to kill Krishna is actually scary, even though we know Krishna kills the demons. In many scenes with demons, we have to close our eyes because we cannot stand to see it. So it seems not equally enjoyable as enjoying Krishna's dealings with the devotees. There's an enjoyment in scary things too. Why do people pay money for horror movies? That's a taste also. Why do we tell ghost stories? It's just to be scared to some especially when you know you're safe, is a kind of enjoyment. And not just scariness, but battles, and kids are totally involved in video games with battles and all of that. There's enjoyment there, but the enjoyment they're getting is the dim reflection of Krishna's, what you get from the battles of Krishna with the demons. And now Panchatattva Prabhu has raised a new question, but we're way over time here. And in fact, we haven't even finished the purport, which is what I was sort of hoping to do, but we're going to have to come back to it. Today is Wednesday for you, so we'll come back to it Friday. Tomorrow's Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we can stop here. And if that question you want to raise next time, then we'll pick it up from there. And thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. And Kirtan, we still have time for Kirtan.
Maharaj, Ekendra Prabhu, please. It's me?
Please go for it, Prabhu.
No, Maharaj, I need to explain myself. Ekendra Prabhu invited me to chant.
Someone's just going to have to chant.
Please, Panchatattva Prabhu, replace me because I'm feeling exhausted because I came from the beach. I have no energy for chanting today.
Only for arguing about why you can't chant.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnukad Padamhamsa Pariprajaka Ashto Tarasata Shri Srimad Isi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Acharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kundigiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Thank you all very much. And thank you, Vijay Krishna. We accept that. We're not all.
I am so sorry, Maharaj.
We'll let you off.
Thank you very much. You're very kind. Hare Krishna.
Especially now we're satisfied by Panchatattva Prabhu's Kirtan.
Of course.
No complaints. Thank you all again. Hare Krishna. Glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Raj.
Hi, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
So Maharaj is in Dubai, huh, Maharaj?
Yes. The very active congregation. So many devotees here in Dubai. I'm here just for a few days. Monday I should be heading out to Bombay.
Thank you for your time, Maharaj.
Thank you. Thank you. My time is easier here. It's now 4 o'clock in the morning. That's not so bad. Good start of the day to have your company. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and questions and participation. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayādvaita Maharaj ki jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande.
Haribol.